Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album review is on ABC's second album called Beauty Stab. Beauty Stab came out in 1983. It's ABC's third time on my channel. I did rank their um, How to Be a Millionaire. I give that one a 63 out of 100, which is uh, quote unquote good. And then Alphabet City surprised me, and I didn't think Alphabet City was a better album when I generally rate them in my head, but I think when I sat down and actually ranked them for the first time in their history, I gave Alphabet City a 70, so it got into the very good range. And going back to when Beauty Stab came out, this ABC was under maybe a lot of self-imposed pressure, but they had a Lexicon of Love. Their first debut album was a smash success. I mean, they had two top 40 songs in America. The album went gold in America. In UK, they had four top 10 songs. Three of them were top 10. I think even two of them were top five. So they were just on a really high from the success of that album, and going into their second album, they threw everybody a curveball in, and sort of including um, more of a rock sound, and I don't think they were really necessarily pressured from anybody, but I felt like, or as they said, and I've heard them say in interviews, Martin Fry said that they wanted to do something different. They didn't want to make a Lexicon Love 2, and which I can fully understand, and they wanted to challenge themselves. And if you think about the music sounds, one of the things that I've always thought that ABC was really good at, there's a few things actually. First of all, they're very catchy, and their cheesy music is great. And if you know you ABC and you like ABC, then you know what I mean. But then the third thing was they've always done a really good job of harnessing the current state of music and sort of mix it into their music. And Lexicon of Love was disco, right? It was right out of the disco era. Did a great job with that, like Tears Are Not Enough, and How to Be a Millionaire was sort of a little bit more new wave, and the album Up, included some acid house in there. And then Abracadabra did a great job with including uh, some house music in there, and then also Alphabet City and some of it. Abracadabra was a little bit of R&B and dance music in there. And so I always felt like they did a great job of sort of including the latest kind of trends in dance music and kind of put it into the ABC style, and give it back out to us, and make a great, well balanced albums. That's a lot of fun. The cheesy music is good. It's very catchy. There's always a couple great ballads on almost every record. Martin Frey has a tremendous personality, and I love the way he sings and performs. And generally, they have really strong band members that are kind of session players, but have also played in other bands, and generally have good producers. And like Gareth Jones is on Beauty Stab, which he's one of my favorite producers of all time. Um, so they always, you always get a really good a really good album from ABC. Through the first six or seven albums, pretty much all the way through their early '90s, and it really helped prevent them from being a one-hit wonder. But if you rewind back to 1983 and the success of this album, or maybe lack thereof, at the time they were on the verge of being a one-hit wonder. And then, and basically it was by including rock music. And as I look back at this and listen to this now, and this isn't the first time I've heard this album. I've heard it since it came out when I was 7 years old in 1983. Um, Used to have this on cassette way back in the day. And so I grew up with all ABC's records all the way till '91. Every album that came out, I was I have Lexicon and Love framed on my wall. It's just I've always been a huge ABC fans of that 10-year period, and really disappointed in Lexicon and Love too. By the way, that's just a side note, but maybe I'll review that someday. But so far, I've kind of jumped around and I did How to Be a Millionaire, I did Alphabet City, and now I'm reviewing Beauty Stab, and I still got to do Lexicon of Love, and then ABC, and then Abracadabra, and also Up, and then I'll probably do Lexicon of Love too. I don't know if I'll do their '97 album. I think it was Sky. I had the CD. It was Skydiving or Sky something. I can't remember. But that was not a good album. But I'm happy to see that they're still touring and all the great success that they still have. Putting on performances, and that's definitely a bucket list. I've never seen ABC live. I would definitely like to see ABC live, but I would really like to see ABC live if they did a little bit more variety of and not just their hits. I'd love to hear some of their lesser known songs. Um, but yeah, so when I think about this album and adding rock, like there's some rock in here, rock music that's in here, and some playing that is actually really strong. But I think the problem is it's not the right rock music to go with ABC, and it's hard to pinpoint any particular part or any particular song even that where you're like, oh well, that I don't know if that really is the type. But sometimes there's a little bit of, I don't know, like maybe the guitar and the bass line it almost sounds like they're playing more towards they're a rock band and not really a dance band, including some rock. They're like really going hardcore on the rock, and sometimes it maybe doesn't fit as well as it could have. Um, there's certainly like tracks like "Power of Persuasion" that was then, but this is now. "Hey Citizen," those are definitely like some examples of some of the more rock songs. But the bass is generally this album is recorded really well. There's good bass, drums, guitars, horns here and there, all the normal ABC instruments for the most part, but just a little bit less dance and a little bit less keyboards that you were going to hear in How to Be a Millionaire. Um, I'm going to run through the songs really quick and just rate them real quick, and then I'll give my overall thoughts and my score. And this should be a fairly quick one. There's 12 songs on here. Um, there was two singles from this album. That starts out with the first single, which was "That Was Then, But This Is Now." I think this is a strong single, maybe underappreciated at the time, maybe still underappreciated now when you think of all their top 40 songs and all their big hits. This one doesn't necessarily always get the due that I felt like that it should have gotten. The chorus is really good. I really like the bridge. I think it's really close to being a very good song. I got it at 6 and 3/4 stars out of 10. Right on the edge of being very good. It's like right there. I could easily say it was 7. I just felt like it wasn't quite there, but I still think it's a very underrated song. And then you get into track number 2, "Love's a Dangerous Language." For some reason, this reminds me of Billy Idol's "Daytime Drama," which is the second track on Rebel Yell. And this is the second track, but it has some changes in there where he sings it, and it sounds like the changes in "Daytime Drama" by Billy Idol. I don't know, it's such an odd thing to say, but for some reason it reminds me of it. It's pretty good, catchy overall. I can't necessarily put it in the good range, and there's a lot of songs where on this album there I can't necessarily put it into the 6 and above rating and put it in the good category. But I do got in the pretty. There's a lot of pretty good songs on here. This is 5.5 stars out of 10. If I ever thought you'd be lonely, 5 and 3/4 stars. This one's a little bit more musical, so I like this one a little bit better. Power of Persuasion's not bad. That one's a little bit more musical as well, maybe a little bit more upbeat. Maybe that sort of ABC cheesiness where you do find it endearing and catching and stuff like that, but not quite to the level of songs from the past that sort of do this in a less rocky way. It almost reminds me of Roxy Music in a way. Um, I could see them trying to, Avalon was huge around this time, maybe the year before. So I can kind of feel like there's a couple songs on here. It kind of sounds like Roxy music a little bit, and this one does. But I like it. Um, it's almost at a good range again. 5 and 3/4 stars. Beauty Stab is an instrumental. It's kind of symphonic rock. It's okay. It's not too long. I think it's just a little bit over 2 minutes. I give it 4.5 stars. It's okay. Track number 6, like usual, an ABC album will never be complete until there's a really strong ballad in there. They always do a great job of doing some good ballads. One of my favorite songs is All of My Heart, Ocean Blue. Um, they always seem to really do a really good ballad song. This by default by design is the is the classic ABC ballad on this album in my opinion. I give it 7 stars. Excuse me, 7 out of 10. Hey Citizen, I think it's pretty good. It's right on the bottom of it. I give it 5 out of 10 stars. I think some of the cheesy tracks, some of the catchy tracks don't quite hit the level of Tower of London or Fear of the World or Archangel or there's always like some albums on songs on every ABC album where they're kind of they're kind of they're not a single, they're not necessarily the best song on the album, but they're kind of in that period if you were to rank them in between maybe like track 3 and track 6 of the if you were to rate the 10 songs on the album, sometime in between like 3 and 6 where you just think like it's kind of really catchy and you play it more than maybe even a single on the album because it just kind of grows on you and is so catchy and I don't quite think on Beauty Stab that the songs quite get there in that range of your kind of top 4 to top 6 or 7 songs on the album. So yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 10. King Money, I do feel like it is one that is a little bit better. I give it 6 out of 10. This almost has a reggae groove to it. It's a little bit laid back, better groove on it for sure. There's a really strange part on it that reminds me of the hand jive by Grease. Yeah, just trust me on that one. It sounds like hand jive from Grease. It's really strange. Only happens one time in the song, and it's like for like 5 to 10 seconds. It's really strange. I mean, not really strange, but it just reminds me of hand jive by Grease. I don't know. But kind of a King Money classic Martin Fry vocal on here. Classic vocals. But the song kind of fizzles out at the end. Like you kind of want it to. You feel like it's going to be one of the better songs on the album, and then it still kind of like fizzles out. But then track number 9, Bite the Hand. It's pretty good. It's 5 out of 10. Unzip I do like better. The piano helps the more rock and the more melodic. So I get that one's one of the better songs on the album. 6 and 1/4 stars. SOS was the second single on the album. Love the bells, strings, floaty verse, smooth. It's hard not to say this isn't the best song on the album, and I have to sort of put that in the first place for 7 and 1/4 stars. Only 2 songs on the whole album above 7 stars. A little bit disappointing. And then the last track, United Kingdom. It's okay. 4 and 3/4 stars. Couldn't quite say it was pretty good. So when I look at the overall score of the album, it's 69.5 stars divided by 12 tracks is a 5.79. So right on the high side of pretty good. Now, I feel like, or 5.79, 58, what have you. I did give the album 2 extra points for being well recorded. It might seem, it might, it might be a preference thing. Like some people might think this album is probably a little closer to good, and I feel like it's a good album too in a strange way, and it's really close. So I kind of pushed it over the edge and gave it a 60 out of 100. It is the least, probably my least favorite ABC album out of the first probably 6 or 7. Um, it's gonna be interesting to see which one's the lowest. Probably Up or Beauty Stab. But as far as like the best album, probably Abracadabra is probably my favorite, and then Lexicon of Love too. And then I have a feeling Alphabet City will be third with a 70. So Abracadabra and Lexicon of Love will be definitely be in the 70s. It'll be interesting to see if either of them hits high 70s or maybe even into an 80 score for me as kind of like a new wave classic. But it's kind of on the edge for me. Just it's really dependent on the songs that I can't think of right off the top of my head on Lexicon of Love, and then it'll depend on the consistency of Abracadabra for that. But I feel okay about giving this album a 60 out of 100. It's still an enjoyable album, but when you actually sit down and rate the songs and you compare them to other ABC songs and other ABC albums, it just doesn't quite hit there. And it's not because there's not some catchiness in here. It's well recorded. Again, the rock music might be a little bit off. Maybe not the exact rock music that it should have been. Maybe a little bit too uh, rocky. I don't know. You think of a track like King Money, which is more laid back groove, or Unzip, which is still more powerful, but it has more melodic. I feel like they're kind of lost a little bit of the melody in here and the harmonies in here a little bit. And a second ballad would have been nice as well. The first ballad was my second favorite song on the album, so another ballad in here would have definitely helped the album. And then when you think about it, there's 12 songs on here. If they took out the two sort of instrumental tracks, United Kingdom and Beauty Stab, the album would be a little bit more concise and cohesive. And by taking out two tracks, it kind of strengthens the tracks that are remaining, somewhat tightens up the album. And maybe it's not that it's more rock, but maybe the problem is it's maybe less disco. Um, that could be an idea. Um, like Hey Citizen, even though it's a fine track, it's a good track. It's perhaps in some ways it's still dancey, but it lost the disco plot. There's no really disco in here that really made ABC ABC. And when you think of like How to Be a Millionaire, that's sort of like maybe like dance music at that time and sort of being even a little bit more electronic, but um, it's just maybe even a wave, but it's still more dancey than this album, and it's not disco. So it's hard to say. Just feel like this album just kind of loses the doesn't necessarily lose the fun, but it loses a little bit of the dance and feels maybe a little bit too rock, even though it's well produced and well recorded. Um, and I feel like the cheesiness in here is less successful. There's a lot of you know pretty on point ABC choruses and ABC lyrics and ABC fun and the kind of cheesy sound and I mean that in all good because I really like ABC a lot. But just feel like the cheesy songs that they normally do that would win you over just don't as much in this album. And because they're not electronic, it really doesn't go over for me as well either. Um, but that's being honest. But I still feel like it's a good album. 60 out of 100 is still in the good range, and I feel confident about giving it a couple extra points and sort of bumping it up to good. Because I think it's better than pretty good. I still think it's good. It's it's basically those 2 points are for it being recorded well and coming from pretty good to good. It's it's funny because I guess when you think about it, would you play a pretty good album all the way through? Like not for the first time, but just in general, like of all the music I have and all the music that you can have and all the music that you can play, would you spend 50 minutes up to an hour on an album that is pretty good? That's I think I can, but that's when I think of this and I'm like, well, I definitely can. So I feel like, okay, well, it's got to be a good album then. Maybe I'm just critiquing the songs a little bit too much. I think to the right person, again, probably this album would be scored a little bit better. But I don't feel like I'm being harsh on the album at all. It's just I do you have to kind of compare albums to the other albums with ABC. So that's my overall thoughts on ABC Beauty Stab, 60 over 100. I'm curious to know your thoughts and what you thought of this album, if you've heard this album, and if you'd like me to review anything of yours, your own music, or another album like ABC. Just email me in the notes. You'll see my email below, and just write me an email, and I'll be glad to talk to you about what you have in mind for me to review. All right, thanks so much.
Keyword recording.